Don't let no man or woman put you in a position that they treat you bad because you're HIV positive. And you stay there because you don't want to venture out and tell anybody else.
Hello, hello, and welcome to another episode of Positive Voices. I'm one of your hosts, Leah Henry.
I'm Malachi Stewart. And today's episode, we're going to be talking about Black women and HIV. This is a really important subject because we know that of the 12,000 reported cases in DC, 28% of them represent men who have sex with men. But Black women are just behind that, representing more than 16%. We know in Montgomery County, 26% of the reported cases are represented by women. And in Prince George's County, 30%. So we're really excited to have Jackie and B here with us.
Yeah, absolutely. And, we realize on Positive Voices that, truly telling your story is how we spread awareness. And so we're excited to have you ladies here today. And feel free to get your tea. We're excited. And so I'll have you start. Tell everybody your story, diagnosis day, and then we'll move from there.
Okay. My diagnosis I was in penitentiary, in the jail. Mm-hmm. My background comes from street walking, prostitution, and that. And so that's how I got to the jail. But once I was in there, they did a physical on me and they found out that I was HIV positive.
Wow. And you tell us your story. You okay there? You got your tea?
Yes. I was in a drug treatment program for the umpteen times. But this time I knew I was really serious. I asked for the test. I don't know why, to prove to you that I wasn't positive because it didn't fit my category. I wasn't gay, I wasn't a male. And so I said, that ain't me. Yeah. And I took a test in June of 1986. And it's been 36 years now, and I was devastated. I wasn't going to tell nobody because I was scared to death to tell anybody. But I told 5 people, my immediate family, my ex-husband, my therapist, and an old boyfriend of mine. And I told them I was going to kill myself. I wasn't going to live with this because it was so how they did Ryan White so badly. And I was just scared.
I was too.
Scared.
I was scared. And what I found out is that when you're meeting people and they you tell them your diagnosis, they back up or they stop talking to you. Well, I went through that a lot. And even in my relationships with men, it was hard for me to tell a man, if I was having sex with him, I'll tell him that I was HIV positive. But I was blessed. I had 2 marriages, and the first marriage I had was with a man, and the second marriage I had was with a woman. So the females don't seem to have the same problem that men do. Men, I guess they just scared, and they don't want nobody to know. And so I wasn't one of these people. I would not hide the fact that I was HIV positive. Yeah, just let people know because I didn't want to have to go through that. Them changing their mind or saying something bad and embarrass me or something like that.
Yes, and in 85 it was called GRIDS. In 1986 it was called the HTLV3 virus. That's what they told me I was diagnosed with. And then in 87 it became HIV.
So I am 39 years into HIV.
Yeah, a lot of similarities in your stories about the experiences. I think, the change with you all, finding out your diagnosis close to almost 40 years ago. We know a lot of things have changed in the advancement of medicine. A lot of things have changed with stigma. Talk to me about the trauma that you kind of endured. You're talking about every year there's a new name. Every year there's a new medicine. Every year there's a new. What is it like living knowing that there's this constant change? It feels like almost there's no control of your health or the way that you can come in and advocate for yourself, especially as Black women in this space. So talk to me as a Black woman how, being diagnosed almost 40 years ago, what that was like.
nobody knew what to do with HIV clients. They didn't know what to do with me. So when I tried to stop using drugs, they sent me to the mental health
Wow.
unit. And they treated me real bad, and that was just the way they felt. I understand people get scared or don't want to be with someone that's HIV positive. But, if you believe in the God that I know about, it's going to be all right.
Come on, somebody.
Yeah.
What about you?
You tell you, I was traumatized. I was not going to tell nobody. And I thought my life was over because I was getting sober too. I got sober at the same time that I found that I was positive. And what helped me to come to grips with it, I didn't wait a long time. I was diagnosed in 86 and I started working on HIV in the next year because I was a recovering alcoholic and that's what I used. I said, oh, this is another disease. And that's I got through the book of Job. Job helped me a whole lot with the stigma that they placed on Job, with leprosy and things back then and there.
Yeah.
And I've been doing it right ever since.
Yeah, my mother, when I told my mother, she told me to use a certain bathroom. It was 2 bathrooms in the house. I have to use one of the bathrooms just before me. And the padding on the bed had to be one of my paddings, not someone else's in the house. I had to keep everything that she was what I was living, had to be close to me. And I couldn't understand that my mother treated me that way. She didn't want to talk about it or nothing. And she still don't want to talk about it.
Wow.
She think that God can get rid of it. I thought that too. But I had to learn that what was done, and try to live accordingly the best way I can. But the rest of my family, my mother has 14 brothers and sisters. And the rest of my family, they were more understanding than my mother. So that bridge, that put a wedge in our relationship still today. She don't want to talk about me being in therapy. She just, everything is that God is going to fix it. Yeah. And so he didn't. And, and life goes on.
And my family was very supportive. Here go my aunt told me, you going to be all right. I said, you say that. It's not you. And I would tell them, my family members, because she was one of the first people I told. And they was very supportive. They didn't treat me like that, thank God. Well, so.
I know my grandchildren, she still tells them, don't drink after me. Don't use no fork after me. Oh, yeah. She's like that. She just won't get it. And I said, you should read about it, Mama. And I gave her some information. She didn't read it, so it's a love and hate relationship, I tell you. Because she can be really mean when it comes to that.
Yeah.
But I didn't tell my children when I was diagnosed.
Wow.
I told them when the movie when Ryan White came out, that's when I told them. And my little bratty daughter, the baby, and I said, I got something to tell you. I came in the house and they were looking at the store and they saw how they was treating Ryan.
Yeah.
It was horrible. Could go to school, they would burn his house down and whole 9 yards. I said, Mom, you should come listen. I knew what it was they was looking to. And I said, Belmont, this is my opportunity time to tell him. And after it went off, I told him I had something to tell him. I said, your mother's HIV positive. Because first I had to, y'all know anything? She said, no. They said, we know someone said, no, it's something you have to do to get it.
Right.
And baby girl said, Mother, don't use that for no excuse. And I was like, oh, she did say that.
She checked you.
Yeah, she did.
Yeah.
And then she was working in the field of HIV too, somewhat else. And so she got real educated and they used to go to places with me because I got help. I'm a founding board member of the first women HIV/AIDS organization in Washington, D.C. that went under. It was called the D.C. Women's Council on AIDS. And that's how I got started with advocating for myself. And I used to work at Department of Health and Human Services that they tried to discriminate against me. But the Surgeon General saved me.
What?
Yeah, her and Dr. Mullen was my supporters, and they kept that secret. And so I was, and I lived, because that was my first job, first legal job anywhere.
Right.
So.
I have a question about that, the advocacy, because you mentioned, and this is for both of you, you mentioned, at the time of your diagnosis, the traumatic feeling, and you both kind of talked about not wanting to live, not, maybe even if I'm understanding you, hearing beyond what you're saying is like not being sure if there is a reason to live or what life looks like afterwards. How important was advocacy for that? Like, how did that change things when you started doing the work in the community?
Yeah, it definitely did. I started talking about it in NA meetings and AA meetings. I started there disclosing. So it made it hard, but it made it good too. So, everybody's not gonna like you.
You were getting your feet wet.
But right. And so I've done several things to advocate for people that, especially women that has HIV. You were saying, talking about, how you've been treated and stuff. Every person I met, for some reason, they couldn't talk to me. Especially men. Because what happened, I told it in a meeting, and they told it to somebody else, and they told it to somebody, you know what I'm saying? And so it was just crazy. And nobody really knew what to do with us. Yeah. The women, talking about the women, they really did.
Well, I didn't disclose because I had children. And I thought about, it ain't about me, because they have to live on, they have to go to school. And I know how cruel kids can be.
Yeah.
And so I gradually, because I got into the speaking circuit, and then I advocate. Matter of fact, I spoke for Julian Bond on TV and things, and Channel 7 did a segment there. And my kids, and that's what the main point why I didn't, and people talking about free, you say, I am free. And then I said, people ain't lending you money. And they know you dying wage. I was trying to buy a house and a car and the whole 9 yards. So I wasn't putting that out there.
Yeah. That's important.
Till after I got my stuff.
No, that makes sense. And I think, one of the reasons that we wanted to have an episode about Black women and HIV is because we don't, like you said, they don't know what to do with Black women or women in general, because the face of HIV looks so different, right? We assume it's men having sex with men that are the face of this. And at the time both of you were diagnosed, that's what it looked like. You even said yourself, this not me. This isn't me. So, and then I think it's a very interesting point too, that you said that, the reason that you decided not to disclose was one, for your children. And I think that there's something powerful to be said about the fact that disclosure meant danger.
Yeah.
So talk to me about some of the things that you all have had to overcome as women, 40 years ago almost, being diagnosed with HIV. I mean, you talked about you almost couldn't buy a house, you couldn't work. But talk to me about some of the hardship that you have experienced in your journey, with some of the stigmas that were in place almost 40 years ago.
Well, the most, not saying the most, the way that people treated you based on your HIV status, it wasn't even looking at you as a whole person. They just looking at the status. And some people were very, very mean, very mean. Like the church, they would say, you're going to die. And and you shouldn't be around other people, and people didn't want to drink behind me, eat behind me, all that crazy stuff. I too was looking for, started a job in HIV field. It was HIV Coalition. Yeah. And they helped me be more comfortable with myself, because it was an HIV organization. And so I kind of just went up in my job. So eventually I created my own company. And I had a nonprofit for women. And we provided prevention services for over 13 years. But I've always been a little part of HIV. But the things that they talk about now are mental health. Because, mental health came along with, I was suicidal too. And I still go through that every now and then.
Yeah.
That I feel lost or not wanted.
40 plus years, almost 40 years later.
Yes.
There's still
stigma is terrible. Still
I'm telling you.
It was a horrible situation.
Yeah.
Trying to do it one day at a time. And that's where I have to stay in the day, because yesterday gone. I can't do nothing about that.
Yeah.
And tomorrow ain't promised to me.
Yeah.
So when I go from there, because I be depressed. I mean, all the time I was holding up everything. But I tell people I'm a human.
Yeah.
And I still feel things.
That's right.
But I don't allow you to dismiss how I feel.
Yeah.
And it's okay to feel however you feel.
Yeah.
And that what gets me through is trying to know, and I could help women, because I used to be a case manager also.
Me too.
And I still work with the health department also.
Mhm.
So since I've been retired in 95. So I'm trying to do what I can do when I can do it. And it's most of the time I help women. Don't be pessimistic about what you want to do. Write it down.
Mhm.
And I used to do support groups. Write down what you want, what you see, and what you want to buy. Write it down.
Mhm.
And my list is depleted, so I had to add some more stuff to it. I want to do a camel. I want to go to India, buy a whole bunch of clothes and things.
Yes.
And I love me more today than I did yesterday,
Yeah.
because it has given me life that I could do anything. As long as I stay sober now and I got God in my life.
Mhm.
Y'all know, I try to run them Jehovah's Witnesses away. I told them I was psychotic, got out drug treatment, sent them on Thorazine and them HIV positive. They didn't go nowhere. And that's what I preach. I have a bad taste in my mouth for the church, because they was rejecting us. And that's the time we needed them most. So, and I said, the stigma is still there.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Why I live and kicking. So, I mean, don't be so ready to go out there and throw your name up out there, girlfriend. If you can't handle it, don't throw it up out there.
Mhm.
And that's the key, is being able to handle it. What comes down the pike your way. Because, it's not a good feeling at all to be discriminated, get in that kind of way.
And you said something that was so, I think, powerful. You rarely hear people who are advocates, who work in this field, say, I still have hard days. Say that I'm still depressed sometimes, that sometimes it's still hard. I know from doing the work, from being a retention specialist, from, supporting case management, that how we feel about ourselves will reflect on how we are able to stay retained in care, how we're able to adhere to our medications. There is somebody watching right now. There's a Black woman watching right now who is living with HIV, who is still having hard days, who is still depressed, who is having their adherence affected by that, who is having their ability to go to their appointments affected by that. What would you tell them about your story? What would you say to them in that moment?
I go to the doctors all the time. People say, "Why you go to the doctors?" I said, "Because I want them to catch whatever I get before I get it." And I take a lot of my medicines, some at night. So if it new stuff, if it's going to affect me, it's going to do it while I'm sleeping stuff. And I don't know how to handle it when I come up. But I treat myself royally. Anytime God buy me something to know my appreciation to how I learned how to. And that's how I do, because I went back to school, got my GED. And I was real happy at 30 years old. And those are some of the things I did in different segments of stuff that I did to empower me. And I said, I could do this. Because that's how you do. You accomplish the stuff off my list. You just write a list. What you like about yourself, what you don't like about yourself, what you love about yourself, and what you wanted to do. And that was one of my first things I wanted to do, get my GED back. And that's when I got into the federal government. And from there, I went on and just began to thrive. I was empowering myself there, but I'm thriving now to keep doing, even though the medicine didn't mess me all up and carrying on. But that's why I wear these to hide all that, the fat and stuff. And so, and I just try to play positive stuff, music. I love my Beyonce. If it ain't Patti LaBelle. And what I was doing when I was there was Patti LaBelle. I got a new attitude. And I used to get up with my kids and we would play that and do to Richard Simmons in the mornings, and we used to do all that stuff. But I get tired. I get tired of taking medicine. But guess what? Every time somebody called and tell me somebody died, I say, I think you better rethink that. Don't you want to take your medicine? I say, yeah. Because like they said, it's fine and dandy, but because if you start going downhill, you're getting ready to die if you stop taking the medicine. Because that's what keeps us alive.
And B, it sounds like your resilience is really rooted in constantly being intentional about reminding yourself of all the reasons to live. Yes. Acknowledging that you have those moments, acknowledging that there are moments that you feel depressed, that you feel sad, that you feel overwhelmed, that you don't feel like taking the medicine, but being intentional about, but here are all the reasons I have to live. Is it the same for you, Jackie?
Well, my daughter, she was very kind to me when I told her. She's been my support for a long time.
Okay.
And we both of us used to do support groups and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. My goal was to teach women how to be in a relationship and not to be so desperate. Because a lot of times, I can tell you what I went through with feeling that I had to be with somebody that accepted me, but they was going to treat me bad, and I still would stay there. Mm-hmm. And because I was so desperate that I didn't want to be alone. Yeah. But once I began to build myself and realize how important I am, it got a little easier. I still go through the depression thing because recently I just started taking my medicine again because I had took a break because I wanted to die. I wanted to see myself go. I would imagine in my mind how I was going to kill myself every day. So my diagnosis with depression is really, really getting bad right now. So I have to be careful who I have in my life that's telling me things. Mm-hmm. And Yvette and I have known each other for a long, long time. And so she came back in my life this last month, wasn't it? This last month?
This month or so.
Yeah. And I was so grateful to have her back in my life, someone that was HIV positive that think the way I thought, because who would think that I would create a whole program for women? I would get to that level where I needed to be in charge because it wasn't getting done.
Yeah.
And so I started off with HIV, been doing HIV stuff with the health department. But eventually I went into recovery stuff, dealing with substance abuse and other drugs. Mm-hmm. Because I am 37 years in recovery. And I can't believe it. I don't know how I made it, but the grace of God, you know what I'm saying? Because I was ready to leave here. It wasn't working out for me.
Yeah.
And so, but I could say that Yvette has come back in my life. She's trying to put me back on the road with dealing with HIV. And I didn't think I would ever go back, but I did. I was glad to go back.
It sounds like the sisterhood is really important. And I remember you said in the beginning that they didn't know what to do with us. Mm-hmm. It sounds like we still may not know what to do. It sounds like there may be areas where we're still missing, particularly with Black women, how to support them. What do you feel from your observation, both professionally, because you both have worked in the field, and just your own personal experiences? What are we missing? What support is needed? What would be helpful?
Transitional housing, independent housing for women.
Okay.
Not just women with children, but just women, women by themselves. And they don't have a lot of places. I've been advocating for housing for a long time, but they just getting kind of aware of having places for us to go. And they're usually not that expensive. So that's a reason why, you can still hang on to the hope that your life will get better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't want, man, I've seen a lot of women, hurt themselves in different ways. They don't feel like they're worthy of anything. So I can understand that,
Yeah. And this is my last question, but first of all, I want to thank both of you for your transparency, because the reality is y'all's story will save somebody's life. There's somebody listening right now who feels like you do. There's a Black woman who's afraid to tell her family and tell her own children. There are people out there who are suicidal. There are people who are struggling on and off consistently with depression due to this diagnosis. So thank you so much for your transparency. You know, you talked about, people not knowing what to do with you and, taking your medicine. And I appreciate your transparency about stopping your medicine. As it pertains to the medical field and the way that Blacks have been treated in general, you're honestly, a quadruple minority. You're Black, you're women, and you have HIV.
Right.
So 3, you're triple, right?
Right.
So talk to me about the structural difference of healthcare at the time, and talk about, like, as Black women, because we're saying there's still work to do. How is that space filled in that void? You said transitional housing, but 30 plus years ago, how is that different to now? And how, again, you're saying you take your medicine to choose to live, but continuing to tell yourself that there is a reason to do so. What are those contrasts in that space?
Well, every day I have to kind of talk to myself and kind of get myself up and going, because a lot of times I just want to lay in the bed, and I do so. Just sleep. I want to sleep it away,
Yeah.
But it doesn't work like that. With the medicine, like I said, I'll take little weekend breaks from it. I don't know why I do that, but I just do it. I just get tired of dealing with the fact that I'm HIV. And I'm not just HIV, but I have an AIDS diagnosis.
Me too.
And so that's something more chronic, and dealing with with your medicine and seeing your doctor and all that. I haven't seen my doctor in a long time. I just started seeing her again last week.
Wow.
So I was, I don't know how people deal with this in their own way, but I have to really kind of keep myself close to God.
Yeah. And I just be trying to encourage her to do so, because that's why I write a list. It may seem far, but write what you want to do, what you want to buy, just write it down where you want to go. And I've traveled I've been to Africa twice, free, and
yes, we love free.
Because I've been volunteering for 30-something years. And I do know that I'm kind of tired of traveling now, but I still have 3 more places I want to go. And I write that stuff down. And check it off as it comes. And even when I have to do stuff, I write down what I need to do. People don't, if you do one of the things, you've accomplished a lot. And stop thinking I'm a failure that I did something. To just do it. And I have to do it because it helps me to help myself in order to help other women and things. So, but most of all, I'll be trying to get them to buy their own condo and things. Because if I could buy it on welfare, I say, what are they talking about? We can't buy this. Why you think you can't afford that?
Yeah.
Just step out there. Regardless how I might feel. Because I have those feelings about, things. It's not going to be right because all this other stuff with the thyroid. And if they give me one more contraption, I think I'll just get my walker and things in my it's a belt that I'm supposed to wear, and then I just go mess my arm up. And one more another little thing. So, and it just makes me feel, and the CPAP machine, the diabetes. I said, what end is this? Please, God, take me away. And I love my bubble baths with Dr. Teal and my candles. See, you got to do that stuff.
Self-care.
Yes. Self-care, and I sure go to the doctor. I'm scared to take that many breaks away from I have not ever taken a drug holiday. Scared to death.
Wow.
And I wouldn't tell nobody to do that because if your numbers start coming down, you might be, because I too, like Jackson, I was diagnosed with AIDS in 93. And I'm still, and my T cells has been like past a normal immune system, like 1,500 and way up in that area, and been undetected for over 20 years, right? So and that's why I keep it going, keep it moving. And then I say, oh, I got a shot. So I can't go nowhere now.
That's amazing.
Yes.
I want to say something I didn't expect to learn from you all as the person not identifying as a woman in the room. I can speak for Black queers, Black MSM, Black men who have sex with men. One thing that we don't do probably a great job of is when we're in those spaces of depression or we're in that space of, I just don't want to take my medicine. Even as people who work in the field, we don't do as good of a job of reaching out to one another for support. And so I'm learning something from you all and how that sisterhood is important, how important it is to have a person who empathizes, who has a shared experience, be able to kind of give you, some wisdom and guidance and just be there for you. And in that vein, first of all, I am proud of you all for being able to overcome those barriers and for being able to be transparent about what those barriers still look like.
Right.
And I'm glad that you are still here, through all those moments. And because you're here and you have so much wisdom, again, there are so many Black women who, when they see these news reports that says Black women are the new face of the epidemic, what would you say to that woman who is watching right now and wondering, imagine if PrEP was out, right? At the time before your diagnosis. Most of us probably wouldn't have even thought that we were, eligible. We were people who should have taken it. What would you say to that Black woman who's watching right now and like, PrEP is for gay men. PrEP is for trans people. PrEP is for, what would you say to them about being able to take kind of those precautions?
You want to go with that first? Well, you know what? Let me say this. But by me not taking my medicine, my T cell went down to 226. But my viral load is undetectable and it's been a long time. So it kind of weighs,
Yeah.
It keeps things going. So I like I said, my goal is to teach women how to love themselves, and teach them to have respect for themselves. Don't fall for the okie doke. You know what I mean? And don't let no man or woman put you in a position that they treat you bad because you're HIV positive. And you stay there because you don't want to venture out and tell anybody else.
Yeah. And if you're negative, would taking PrEP to prevent HIV be a form of self-love and self-care?
Yeah, absolutely. Medicine, yeah.
Heard. What are your thoughts, B?
I ain't too kosher with that PrEP because it's like probably giving people permission to go have bad behavior. And all I have to do is take a pill to fix it.
Right.
And learn to be alone, but not alone. Being able to do things by yourself that you don't need other people, matter of fact, to define who you are. And you don't need to have somebody with you to carry on. Just like the teddy bear, I used to give my women at support group teddy bear. I said, hug them. They won't talk back and they won't leave you. And that's where I get it. It's okay to be alone opposed to being lonely. And it's all right both ways, but it ain't worth your love for yourself to hurt yourself like that.
Yeah. And that just honestly shows that stigma
That's
is
okay.
just so real.
It's still there.
Yeah. I think, again, you ladies have lended an incredible lens for people to see Black women and what Black women living with HIV look like. So again, thank you guys so much for sharing your stories. I think y'all's transparency is really going to help a lot of people, especially young women listening who might be where you were 30 plus years ago. So again, thank you ladies so much. Let us know where we can get in touch or follow you or get in some of those organizations that y'all help. We'll start here.
I work with Hosta too.
Okay.
And who else I work? I'm on Women Walk. I'm on so many people boards and carrying on. And the Wise Study. But I go to help the other women do what they need to do for themselves. And don't think you can't.
Yeah.
It's not in my vocabulary.
What about you? Where can we go to learn more?
You can reach me on text or email or my phone. It's not hard. If you just call, I accept calls 24 hours a day. So, that's how I used to work. I mean, the work was so intense that I had to have my phone on 24 hours. And you know, when you be the boss, everybody comes to you.
Yeah. So you're used to the community outreach. Yeah. I think there's some ladies listening who will definitely grow a lot talking to you. So thank you guys so much for coming on today. Thank you for being a positive voice for sure. Listen, we also have our own set of resources. Malachi, plug that website because you know I never remember.
Listen, our website is dcnshiv.org/podcast. And we asked for the real conversation. We talked about wanting to hear people's real stories. And that's what we did today, right? We heard real stories. And this is why it's important for us to hear back from you, to get feedback. We need some talk back for you. So when you go on the website, please complete the survey. Let us know what you thought about today's episode. Let us know where you are, if you are HIV positive, and where you are with adherence, where you are with emotional feelings, where you are with being able to kind of navigate your own way through staying in care. We want to definitely hear from you and also provide resources. So please, again, dcnshiv.org/podcast. We want to hear back from you. Me and Leah will be waiting. Leah, tell them to use the hashtag.
Yes, of course. And there is a hashtag that we want you to use. Hashtag positive voices. Let us know on social media. Sound off about this episode. Let us know what you think. And if you connect with these ladies' stories, please let us know. Listen, that will do it for this episode of Positive Voices. We thank you again for tuning in, for listening. Make sure you download, subscribe, and we'll see you next time.
Positive Voices is produced by Chris and Tiana. Our production team is led by C3 Creative Agency.